Hey guys, it's Jose Chavez, and I want to talk to you a little bit about a question that I get all the time. I'm in Florida, and I have a lot of friends that come to Florida, or to the South in general, to do some saltwater fishing. And I feel like one of the things that gets asked every year, without a doubt, is what tackle can my friends that live in the Midwest and other parts of the country bring down here and have success on the water? And a lot of what I tell people is a lot of the stuff that you use at home is applicable here. There's just a few minor modifications that you have to do. So just to go through rod setups first, in terms of my spinning gear, I like 7 to 7.5 foot rods that are medium to medium light in power. I find that to have the most success in the majority of the state, you really need to be able to throw lighter lures as far as possible. And in order to do that, these medium light, medium power setups are kind of the best. And the reason why that's important is because a lot of times we're fishing these tidal flats, and these tidal flats surround the whole state of Florida. And these fish are really sensitive to splashing sounds. So the lightest lure in terms of a plastic or a jig head you can get away with throwing, that's going to give you the most success because it's going to disrupt the fish the least, and they'll kind of have their guard down. If they hear something loud landing near them, then they get a little wary and they're less likely to eat. Bait casters I really like because when it comes to hard baits, I can throw them a long way, and there's some good rods that are moderate in action that work well with lures with treble hooks. So they load up, you pull less hooks, you land more fish, and they work great. The line that I like using on the bait caster is 30-pound braid, and the line that I like using in the spinning gear is 10-pound braid. So with the spinning gear, you might think 10-pound braid, or I'm fishing for this, I'm fishing for that. Why would I use such light line? And again, it comes back to casting distance. Casting distance is one of the most important things that are going to lead you to having success here. And so with 10-pound braid, I can take a 16th ounce jig head and I can cast it much further than I could with anything else. So it gives me a stealthy presentation, it gives me a long cast, and it lets me kind of have the fish with its guard down without elements alerting it that something strange is happening. So I'm going to walk you through some of the basic lures that you can go anywhere in the South or in Florida and do well. And one of my staples, probably what I throw the most, are plastics. And I'm going to start out with paddle tails. So we have a couple different paddle tails here. We have a very natural color like bad shad in the diesel minnow, and then we have a very darkish goldish color like gold rush on an open jig head. And the way you kind of want to fine tune these is if you're in clear water, you want more natural colors. If you're in stained water but still clear, so sometimes you have very tannic water, you want to use things that have a little bit more gold to them, throw a little bit more of a silhouette or more of a solid presentation that these fish will find. If you're in really dirty stained water, then you want to throw something that's a lot brighter, like a tequila sunrise, or even this slam shady color, which is a bright white. That would work really well for that situation. From there, I have this Ned shrimp. And Ned rigs, whether you take your standard TRD that you fish for smallies back home, or even these Ned shrimps, they work really well in saltwater. And they're kind of my finesse presentations. They're things that I use whenever fish are really, really finicky. I don't have to cover a lot of water, and I have a general idea of where these fish are sitting. Those are my go-tos because I can kind of very slowly work an area, and I tend to get the most bites when fish are being difficult with these. Another staple that I use for covering water are topwater baits and subsurface jerk baits. So on the topwater side of baits, we have the Z-Man Hellraiser. This thing throws a lot of flash and really lets you cover a lot of water very easily. You just cast and retrieve it, and it works really great. The other lure that I really like is this dual pitch, which is basically your walking topwater. And these things work great for walking the dog, cruising shorelines. I tend to use topwaters more when the sun's coming up and when the sun is setting. If it's a really cloudy day, then I'll use it more throughout the day. But in general, these are kind of my twilight, low light lures. Whenever the sun comes out, I switch kind of towards the plastic side of things. If I'm covering a ton of water and I need to create a little bit more noise to kind of get an idea of where the fish are at, I'll throw something like a subsurface twitch bait. You can think of it as a subsurface topwater. And so when the sun is already up and I really want to cover water to figure out where fish are at, this is something that makes a little bit of noise. It's going to give me some data. It's good when I'm casting it, working it, it's going to give me information. I'm going to start getting some bites. And at the moment I start getting some bites, I tend to slow down and switch back to my plastics and really work areas well. The next adjustment that you have to make when you're coming here is leaders. So a lot of times people come here and they're like, what leader should I use? And my general rule of thumb is the southern part of Florida has a fish called a snook. They have really rough mouths and they wear through leaders. So if there are snook in the area that you're fishing, you kind of want to start at least with 25-pound fluorocarbon. So fluorocarbon is really abrasion resistant. It's low visibility in water, and it works really well for fish that are pretty wary. If you don't have snook in your area, I start with 20-pound test. And then from there, my general rule of thumb is if I'm not getting many bites, but I'm seeing fish, then I'm gonna step down 5 pounds in leader periodically until I find a combination that works really well. If I'm getting a lot of bites and I'm getting broken off and my leader frayed through, then I'm gonna step up in leader in 5-pound increments. Depending on what you're targeting and how you're fishing it, you can start heavier, you can start lighter, but in general, in most of the state, no snook around, you can start with 20 and be completely fine. And you have some snook around, then I'll probably start with 25 or 30 and work my way up or down based on the success that I'm having. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of crossover. You don't need to go out and buy new rods and new reels. You might need to get new line, you might need to get some leader material and a different set of, plastics and hard lures. But in general, you can take a lot of the gear that you have at home, bring it here and have success on the water.